And team coverage of the shootings in Maine as the search for Robert Card continues. At this hour, we are digging deeper into the gun laws in both Maine and here in Connecticut. Police say the suspect had an assault rifle and had mental health issues. Channel 3 Eyewitness News reporter Olivia Schuler is joining us now in the studio to break down the laws in both states. Olivia.
This horrific mass shooting puts a spotlight on two matters: who can get guns and what weapons do people have easy access to. Let's first talk to you about laws in Maine, where police say Card used that AR-15 style weapon. According to Everytown research, in Maine, there is no extreme risk law. That law prevents law enforcement or family to petition a court order to temporarily stop someone in crisis from accessing guns. However, the state does have a mental health prohibitor and record reporting if someone is found to be in danger to themselves or others. We do know Card was battling mental health issues and was at a mental health facility for 2 weeks over the summer, which leaves the question, how did Card get his hands on an AR-15? Maine also doesn't have laws in place that would generally stop people from getting access to assault weapons or high-capacity magazines. Connecticut has more restricting laws. Unlike Maine, Connecticut has an extreme risk law where family can stop someone in crisis from getting a gun. Connecticut also prohibits assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. One law that the two states have in common is mental health record reporting. That's when officials report prohibiting records into the background check system. Many of Connecticut laws were strengthened after the deadly shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School. To put it all into perspective, right now, Maine ranks 25 for gun law strength. Connecticut ranks number 5. That's all according to Everytown research. In studio, Olivia Schuler, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.